Rubhyascha kripa sindhu B.V.V patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome to Bhakti Vedanta. We're studying Canto 7. We're on chapter number 15. Right? So yesterday we were reading through chapter 14. Do you remember what happened in chapter 14? We heard about, first of all, we spoke about the duties of the householder, right? We spoke about the different things which householders are supposed to do, worship a deity, and serve the other ashrams, and then they're supposed to study the scriptures, they're supposed to cook and offer prasadam and invite guests to come take prasadam, these kind of things. It's all duties of people in the householder ashram. And then we spoke about Shraddha, performing Shraddha ceremonies. And different days are auspicious for performing the Shraddha ceremony. Different days like Akshaya Tritiya, Makar Sankranti, these different Sankrantis, they're auspicious, and we're not supposed to do it on Ekadasi though. So some days are auspicious, some days are not. You have to consult with the Vaishnavas. So, and the place, you should do it where there's a deity. The main thing is there should be a deity there. You go to the holy places, very nice, or where there's a holy river, it's also good. But still, there should be the deity, ideally the deity of the divine couple, Radha and Krishna, or Sita and Rama, like that. Then you can perform Shraddha ceremony, place. And then who do you do it for? We do it for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Right? So this was chapter 14. Then it also, at the end of the chapter, they spoke, Narada Muni, speaking to Maharaj Yudhisthira, he spoke about the importance of worshipping the deity and the brahmanas and Achyuta. Achyuta meaning the Supreme Lord. So worshipping the deity, very important. Help us by worshipping the deity, we become more regulated, and keep ourselves more pure. You have to bathe and put on clean cloth and do things like that. When you worship the deity, it's compulsory. So worshipping the deity is very good for being punctual and cleanliness. And then the brahmanas are the representatives of the Lord. And Lord Krishna himself, he worships the brahmanas. So we also have to worship the brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. Of course, the Vaishnavas, they're the best of the brahmanas. So it's important to worship the deity, the brahmanas, and the Supreme Lord, Achyuta. Right? Then we went on to chapter number 15 about instructions for civilized human beings. And this is the final chapter of the 7th canto. So when we finish this chapter, then you finish chapter 7, you can go on to canto 8. So anyway, the chapter began because we were hearing about the importance in the previous chapter. We spoke about how You have to respect the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. So the chapter begins by talking about different kinds of Brahmanas. And we hear about different rules for the Shraddha ceremonies. Because when you do the Shraddha ceremony, you have to, it's done by some Brahmanas. You invite somebody to do the ceremony for you. And of course you have to give them some charity. And so there's different rules for these things. You have to understand the different requirements for performing these different rituals. So it was mentioned, you don't need to have too many brahmanas. 1 or 2 brahmanas, maximum 3, they can do it. Keep it basic. And ideally they should be Brahmanas, they should be Vaishnavas. So the first 11 verses in this chapter are all about the different rules for performing Shraddha ceremonies. What's a proper time and place, and what people should be there. That's important. For householders, they have to know these things because they have to sometimes do these, they have to arrange these ceremonies. All right, then the chapter goes on. From verse number 12 up to verse 21, we heard about irreligion. What is different kinds of irreligion and how they have to be avoided. Right? There were 5 different kinds of irreligion mentioned. 5 different kinds of irreligion. They're mentioned in text number 12 and 13. I think it's there. I have to find a place. Anyway, there's irreligion, and then there's cheating religion. Yeah. Here. We've got irreligion, which is Vidharma, and then religious principles for which one is unfit, Paradharma, pretentious religion, Abhasa, analogical religion, Upadharma, and cheating religion, Chaila Dharma. One who is aware of real religious life must abandon these 5 as irreligious. So, we know from the Srimad Bhagavatam we'd heard about Kaitava Dharma. Here that Kaitava Dharma is called Chala Dharma, cheating religion. And at the end of the purport of number 12, Prabhupada writes, everything but the principle of religion recommended by Krishna should be given up as irreligion. So what is and then the principle of religion mentioned by Krishna is Sarva Dharman Parigyajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. That we should give up all other things and just surrender to Krishna. So then the next text goes on to talk more about irreligion, and it's mentioned to create a new type of dharma that has become the fashion in this Kali Yuga. to create some kind of new religion. Religious principles that obstruct one from following his own religion are called vidharma. Religious principles introduced by others is paradharma. A new type of religion created by one who is falsely proud and who opposes the principles of the Vedas is upadharma. An interpretation by one's jugglery of words is called chaila dharma. So we have to recognize these different types of irreligious systems. Again, Prabhupada mentions that the real religious system is to surrender to Krishna, to give up all kinds of religion and just simply surrender to Krishna. That's the highest principle of religion. And Prabhupada quotes also Yamaraj. Yamaraj is Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. Real religion is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like the government gives a law, so the Supreme Lord, He gives real religious principles. We're not supposed to manufacture our own religion. You cannot make laws, you cannot make your own religion either. So anything opposed to the religion of Krishna consciousness is either vidharma, paradharma, upadharma or chaila dharma. And when people misinterpret Bhagavad Gita, that is chaila dharma. So we have to be careful to avoid these different types of irreligion. Then text 14, Narada continues talking more about irreligion. He said, a pretentious religious system manufactured by one who willfully neglects the prescribed duties of his order of life is called abhasa, a dim reflection or false similarity. So we have to follow the duties, our duties. We have to know what is proper, what is actually religion. And Prabhupada talks how it's become fashionable for people to be elected as God. And there are missionaries. They have their own God. And they make their own temples, and they have ashrams, and they have meat-eating sannyasis. Meat-eating sannyasis. And many other polluted activities going on. So you get these kind of things, and the common people, they support it. They think, oh, it's very good, because they all want to eat meat. Then that now this temple is coming up, and they're eating meat. So yeah, very good. So who is actually a Brahmana? One who is a Brahmana, it's one thing, it's not enough just to be born in a Brahmana family. It may be an advantage to becoming a Brahmana, but one has to do more than just be born in a Brahmana family. You have to have the Brahminical qualities, which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. 9 qualities. And not only that, you should work like a Brahmana. A Brahmana is not supposed to take up service for others. If he does that, then he loses his independence. He becomes controlled. The Brahmanas are supposed to teach teach the scriptures, worship the deity, teach others to do these things, and they can also accept charity and give charity. That is the only duties of a Brahmana. So one who's working like a Brahmana, he will do these things. All right, so irreligion is being described. And then text number 15 goes on to talk about, what about somebody who's poor, you know? You don't have a good economic condition. So should he try to make money for himself to improve his economic condition? No, he should just accept it, and just maintain body and soul together. And the example is given about the python, which simply lays in one place, does not endeavor for its livelihood.
Maharaj, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
To these cheating religions, I want to ask, around ISKCON, there grow up many different societies or different groups which looks very similar like activities in ISKCON, but actually they, like divided from the Krishna conscious philosophy, or they accept only some part of Krishna consciousness, or they just doesn't cooperate with ISKCON societies or ISKCON management or whatever. So in which category they should be like put, such groups?
Well, we have to see how much they're following the Shastra. They have to follow Shastra. Have they introduced something new? Or if they've just gone outside of ISKCON, okay, that's not a big deal. But so if they're following the four principles, if they're preaching according to Shastra, if their teaching is in some kind of parampara, then it's not a problem. You know, we cannot expect to keep a monopoly. You cannot expect everything always to be in ISKCON. So some people, they want to go outside of ISKCON. They don't want to work in the ISKCON society. So they can go out, they can make their own institution, have their own programs, but they shouldn't preach anything which is not authorized. You know, they should speak according to Shastra. So Prabhupada didn't mind, people want to go out of ISKCON, okay. But you have to follow. If you're going to preach, then you don't invent anything new, don't concoct. Okay, so text 16, 15, we're hearing that somebody is poor, it's okay. It's not a problem. We don't say Krishna consciousness is only for the rich. But just maintain your body and soul. And Prabhupada even talks that you can follow the example of the python. Simply stay in one place. And he says that when we go for preaching, he said, even if it doesn't matter, grihastas or sannyasis, if they're trying to spread Krishna consciousness, then they should just depend on Krishna for their necessities. And Prabhupada gives an example about the python. you may have to do like that in the beginning to begin the Krishna consciousness movement. Simply try to remember Krishna and advance in Krishna. And you don't need to endeavor to earn your livelihood, but just endeavor to be Krishna conscious. Don't worry about money. You know, money will come. Sometimes money will be lacking. You won't have as much as you would like, but don't worry about it. Just be happy to preach Krishna consciousness. Our duty is to try to spread Krishna consciousness. Don't worry about how much money we've got. Oh, think our temple's so poor, we've no money, and like, okay, yeah, that's not a big problem. Prabhupada didn't worry about money. The main thing is preaching, telling people about Krishna. And of course, distributing books, that's very good. So, you can be like the python and just stay in one place. This is called Ajagara Vritti. So, next section talking more about being satisfied. Santushta, santusht. One who is content and satisfied. That's an important qualification for devotees. We should be satisfied and content. Don't be ambitious to become rich or powerful, to get position. Just try to do everything for the service of Krishna. Remember, Krishna's in everyone's heart, and we just simply do our service. We don't have to worry about making big efforts to get more money. If we become greedy for more wealth, for more money, more power, then our minds will not be peaceful. Then we'll be influenced by lust and greed. And we'll just simply be thinking about how to get more money, how to make more money. So that's not good. Right? And then take 17, that nice example, I think I read it yesterday, that when you have shoes on your feet, then you don't have to worry about the pebbles and thorns on the road. You can walk without any difficulty. And the same way, if we're satisfied within the self, then you'll never be in distress. You'll feel happiness everywhere, constantly. You'll always be peaceful and satisfied. But we have to be looking within. We have to be feeling the self, understanding our spiritual nature. And then there will be no distress. There will be no problems. So we want to develop that kind of satisfaction, becoming peaceful. And then text 18, again, talking more about the self-satisfied person. He can be happy just drinking water. He may have no food to eat. He doesn't worry about it. He can drink water. Just like Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, he would never beg. He would go and he came to Govardhan, he was there in Vrindavan, he went to Govardhan, and he wasn't eating anything. So Krishna arranged, Krishna personally came and brought him some milk and gave him something. So it happens like that. Krishna takes care of the devotees. When the devotees fully take shelter of Krishna, Krishna takes care of the devotees. Of course, a devotee doesn't want Krishna to take care of him, but Krishna will do it. But the devotee doesn't like to take service from Krishna. Devotee likes to give service to Krishna. It's better to give than to receive. So if we become controlled by our tongue, then we're always thinking how to get more food, get more wealth, have more luxury. We just want to satisfy our tongue, then you become like a dog. The dog always wants to satisfy his senses. So you become a dog, controlled by the tongue. So you can be happy just drinking water. And Prabhupada said, it's only a matter of practice. Well, there was one Russian lady, she's the wife of one of our devotees. Her husband told me his wife is drinking water for 21 days. She's just been drinking water. So you can do like that. You can just live. It just takes practice. But problem is people are not practiced in how to be satisfied. They don't have practice in self-realization. We should be practiced in that. If you're practiced in self-realization, that is better. So devotees are always satisfied. Devotees should be always satisfied because we feel the presence of Krishna within our heart. And we can think of Krishna 24 hours a day. So that is real satisfaction. Devotees should not be controlled by the tongue or the genitals. It shouldn't be a victim of the laws of material nature. So true Brahmana is always satisfied. You can read in the Krishna book, Rukmini sent a Brahmana to Dwarka to give the message to Lord Krishna that she wanted somebody to come and rescue her. She didn't want to marry Shishupal, she wanted to marry Lord Krishna. So she wrote a letter to Lord Krishna and she gave it to a Brahmana to go there to Dwarka and deliver the letter. So it happened when the Brahmana got to Dwarka and he met Lord Krishna, then Lord Krishna asked him, "How are you, my dear Brahmana? Are you performing all the duties of your dharma? Are you satisfied, in other words?" That's the duty of a Brahmana. Not that they're always anxious for more money or position or fame. They want labh, puja, pratishta. No. A devotee Brahmana should have no material desire. He can be greedy to be Krishna conscious. If he's greedy to be Krishna conscious, that's very good. But if he's greedy just to get money for his own family, for his own sense gratification, that's not good. All right? Is this all clear to everyone? So text 19. Because of greed, then what happens? Because you're not satisfied, so many qualities, bad qualities will come. Because we have if we have too much greed and we're not satisfied in ourselves, then our knowledge will gradually vanish. And the spiritual strength, our education, our austerity and reputation as a devotee, then it will all be reduced. It will all disappear gradually. Just like our knowledge will gradually vanish. Because we're not satisfied. Because we're not satisfied, we're thinking what we want. We're thinking what's wrong, what this is no good, this is no good. We're not thinking of Krishna. We're just thinking of our own sense gratification. So that's the problem. Okay, then text number 20. Narada Muni talks about having desires. A person may be hungry or thirsty, but when he eats, then all of his desires will be satisfied. He'll become calm. And then Narada Muni compares it. He said, if someone becomes very angry, then his anger can be satisfied when he chastises the enemy. If he's able to chastise someone, then it will satisfy his anger. But when it comes to greed, if a greedy person has conquered all the directions of the world, or has enjoyed everything in the world, still he will not be satisfied. So that is the nature of greed. It's never satisfied. So, Prabhupada, right? Because we know there are 3 gates to hell, right? 3 gates to hell. What are they? Someone?
Lust, anger and greed.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. So which one is the most deadly?
Lust.
Wrong. Yet Prabhupada mentions in the purport here. He said, first of all, he said, lusty desires for sense gratification, if we're not able to satisfy them, then we become angry. But this anger can be satisfied when we chastise someone, chastise the enemy. But when there's greed, that is the greatest enemy. Because that greed coming from the mode of passion, it stops one from advancing in Krishna consciousness. So that is the greatest enemy. It comes from Rajagun. So then it degrades the Rajagun, can degrade into Tamagun. So we try to satisfy everyone. If they're greedy, let them be greedy for Krishna consciousness. That is glorious, that is wonderful. If they want Krishna consciousness very badly, we're thinking very nice. Very good. But if we're just greedy for our own sense gratification, then that is not good. So greed is the most deadly, the greatest enemy. Okay, then text 21. And Narada Muni describes many different people. They fall down into hellish life because of not being satisfied with their position. They want position, they want respect, they don't have it, they're not satisfied. And then what happens? Then they start finding fault with everyone, and then they'll go away from Krishna consciousness. And this has happened many times, not only in Krishna consciousness. They mentioned, Narada Muni mentions persons with varied experience, legal advisors, learned scholars, many persons eligible to become presidents of learned assemblies, because they're not satisfied with their position. They fall into hellish life. They're not able to control their mind. So it's important for spiritual advancement. We have to be materially satisfied. And if we're not materially satisfied, then our greed will stop our spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada mentions, the purport here is very interesting, text number 20, right? 21, Prabhupada mentions two things which are very important, which can destroy all of our good qualities. Two things. First one is poverty. If we're poverty-stricken, then we can lose all of our good qualities. And the other thing is, if we become too greedy, then our good qualities are lost. So on one hand, you should not be poverty-stricken, and on the other side, you should not be too greedy. You have to balance the two, right? We shouldn't be poverty-stricken. We should be able to maintain. We should have the bare necessities, right? Basic needs should be there. Then you can be satisfied. A devotee can be satisfied with the basic needs. It's the best advice for spiritual advancement.
Maharaj, one question I wanted to ask. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Maharaj, regarding, you were explaining about the lust and the greed, no? If the greed is the most important, like I was thinking that if lust is not fulfilled, then we get anger. And if lust is fulfilled, then we get greed more. We get more and more greedy for satisfying the lusty desires.
Yes.
Is it right?
Right.
So is lust not the most problematic thing? More than greed?
Well, lust is just the beginning, right? Lust is the initial cause, but then from the lust comes the anger or the greed. So lust is there in the beginning, but the greed, when we become greedy, then it becomes very dangerous.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
When you become too greedy for something, you want more, you don't have enough. So Prabhupada mentions here in the purport, he said, it's advised therefore not to endeavor to increase the number of temples and mats. So even in terms of our temples and ashrams, we don't want to endeavor too much to increase these things. If the opportunity is there, then we take it. But we don't endeavor greatly just to get these things. And Prabhupada, he talks about other people like Ramanujacharya and the Goswamis and Bhakti Siddhanta. They all built big centers, big temples. So he says temple construction is not bad, provided proper care is taken for the propagation of Krishna consciousness. And even if people say, no, it's greedy, then Prabhupada said, well, the greed is to satisfy Krishna. And therefore, these are spiritual activities. So, spiritual activities, that's very good. We want to have more spiritual activities. Building temples, okay. Some money is there, money is around. Use it for the service of Krishna. Make a nice temple. Devotees are there. Okay, have an ashram. Give them a chance to practice full-time devotional service. And similarly in family life, don't be anxious to always improve your condition and your situation. Just be satisfied with what is achieved naturally and honestly, without too much endeavor. So two things which can destroy the quality, good quality. Poverty, and the other thing is greed. So one thing we could spend a little time to do, it would be nice to can you just read through these verses and make a note about the good points about satisfaction, the glories of satisfaction and the results of dissatisfaction. Right? You can get all this, you just have to go through these verses, 12 up to 21. Just take 10 minutes and go through these verses and list some points which you consider which are praising the glories of being satisfied, and also list points which show what happens when we're dissatisfied. What are the results? All right, you can work with partners. How many people do we have in the class today?
About 14 people.
14 people, okay.
It's don't have host.
Huh?
We cannot go to breakout rooms.
Oh, cannot. Okay, well, everybody just sit and read the verses yourself and make some notes, write down some points, and we'll come back to you in 10 minutes. All right? I want to know what are the good points about being satisfied and what's wrong with being dissatisfied. What harm are you going to do to yourself by being dissatisfied? And you should get these points from the verses. You read through the verses and the purports. See what you can come up with. Is it clear?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, is everyone finished? No?
Yes, Maharaj.
Good. Okay, let's hear some answers. Give me one point about the glories of being satisfied. What's the benefit?
Maharaj, in verse number 15, so Narada Muni says that one should simply, tasyaiva heto prayatet kovitaha. So Prabhupada says that one should simply endeavor to increase this Krishna consciousness. One should not desire to do anything else, even to earn his livelihood. So great acharyas, so they...
Do you think, is that the glories of being satisfied, that you shouldn't endeavor?
It is the instruction from our acharyas.
Okay. Yes, it's an instruction, but it doesn't really tell us the glories of being satisfied. The benefit, what real benefit do you get out of being satisfied? Yes?
Verse number 13, Analojo suitable shoes are being given that he doesn't feel any distress and he feels happiness everywhere.
Right, that's a good point. That's one of the glories of being satisfied. That you won't feel any distress. You should be happy all the time. And Prabhupada expected devotees to be like that. It's, that we even got the name the Happy Krishnas. Not just the Hare Krishnas, but the Happy Krishnas, because people always saw us so blissful, that we're so happy. We're always singing and dancing, we're joyful. People were surprised, because they're so miserable in material life, but devotional service it's on the spiritual platform, and devotees feel joyful and happy. So this is one of the glories of being satisfied.
Maharaj, another one, in verse number 16, he enjoys divine happiness.
Yes, divine happiness. Well, we just spoke about that, yeah. Something else?
Maharaj, one more from verse number 17. It gives an analogy about a person who is wearing a suitable shoe can walk on pebbles and thorns. So similarly, a person who is always self-satisfied, there is no distress. Indeed, he feels happiness everywhere.
Yes, right. There's no distress, right? So that point is there. Yeah, I'm looking for some other points.
Another point is, Maharaj, for him everything is auspicious. Whatever he did for him, everything becomes auspicious.
All right, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
There's in verse 18 it says that a devotee is always satisfied because he feels the presence of the super soul within his heart. So in that way, thinks of him every 24 hours. So that's why he's got the real satisfaction.
Okay. Yes. He's feeling the presence of the super soul. So it's real satisfaction.
Yeah. Maharaj, he's never victimized by the laws of material nature, because he's not driven by dictations of tongue and genitals.
Okay.
So not victimized by the laws of material.
Not controlled by material nature.
Yeah. It doesn't fall a victim to the laws of material nature.
Okay. There's one text 18, where it talks about the person who is not satisfied, he takes the position of a household dog to satisfy his senses. Now that's not a very glorious position, to take the position of a household dog just for the sake of satisfying your senses. But that's what happens. People are driven, they want to control their tongue, their genitals, and they'll become like a dog. They're controlled by others. Anyone else? Text 19 has some important points about the glories of being satisfied and the dangers of not being satisfied. Text 19 said, because of greed for the sake of the senses, one's spiritual strength is lost. One's education is diminished. Austerity vanishes. And the reputation of a devotee is lost because we're not satisfied in ourselves. As soon as we're dissatisfied, then all of these things happen. We lose our strength, we forget all of our education, and our austerity is lost. And the reputation as well goes down because we're not satisfied. We're not satisfied, we start criticizing everyone. So in this way, all of our knowledge gradually vanishes. So this is some of the points about being satisfied. We have to be very careful. Try to keep ourselves satisfied. All right, is everyone okay with this? So this goes up to text 21. Text 21. They fall into hellish life because their ambition for power. And of course, you get a big position, people don't want to give it up. They like to hold on to it. They become very attached. And that's a big problem for somebody who's trying to become self-realized, to have a lot of material attachment. How could you ever become self-realized? So Prabhupada mentioned these 2 points, poverty, and the other one was?
Too greedy.
Huh?
Too greedy.
Greed, yeah. So
Too much of it.
Poverty and too much greed, they take away all of our good qualities. We have to be very careful, not to be in that condition, poverty-stricken, and at the same time don't be greedy. Be satisfied with the basic needs, bare necessities, Prabhupada said. Basic needs should be there. Okay, we'll go ahead, text 22. Text 22 up to 25, describing processes to conquer various obstacles. To conquer various obstacles. Let's look at them. making plans with determination. By making plans with determination, one should give up lusty desires. So we want to conquer lusty desires for sense gratification. How to overcome that? Make plans with determination. And then want to overcome envy. One should, by giving up envy, we can conquer anger. We get angry usually because we're envious of other people. But if we give up envy, then we won't be angry. Then by talking about the disadvantages of accumulating wealth, one should give up greed. Right? Disadvantages of accumulating wealth. Problem is, what's the problem with accumulating wealth? Someone can tell me? Any problem with accumulating wealth?
One has to take care of the wealth. Is always worried about somebody will steal it, some thief will steal it.
Yeah.
They're always anxious.
Yeah, so many people will come to you that, why don't you invest with me? And they'll give you this, I have this wonderful scheme, we're going to get so much interest, you'll make a lot of money and everything. People say like that. And they try to get you to invest the money, and when you give them the money, then all the money's lost. You never see it again. So, like that.
One becomes, one gets chintamani. He gets chinta only about money.
Yeah, you think about the money. If you don't have any money, you don't have to think about it. And then discussing the truth, one should give up fear. By discussing the truth, one should give up fear. The truth, what is it? Well, the truth is we're spirit souls, we're not the body. And we understand that, then we can give up all these bad thoughts. And the purport is very nice also. Prabhupada quotes about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. It talks about the desire for sense gratification. So he gives the example about women. And now you see women everywhere. You cannot avoid seeing women. But if you're determined not to live with a woman, then you won't become lusty. Even though you may see a woman, you won't become lusty. If you're determined not to get intimately involved with a woman, then you can conquer lusty desires. And he gives another example. If you're hungry, but you may be hungry, just like yesterday was Ekadasi, and you may be hungry, but if you're determined to fast, you can do it. You can conquer the hunger and thirst. You fast. So, the same way, you can conquer over material desires. If we're determined not to be envious of anyone, we can conquer over anger. So different obstacles are given, and solutions to the obstacles are given here. Going ahead, next verse. By discussing spiritual knowledge, we can conquer lamentation and illusion. Just like when there's a death in the family, then people should come together and they should read the scriptures, and they should read about the soul and the nature of the material world. And here Prabhupada quotes the verse from Bhagavad Gita, for one who's taken birth, death is certain. So in this way, when we hear about the soul, how the soul is eternal and the body is temporary, it can help us to overcome our lamentation and illusion. And then we may be very proud. So you can overcome pride, you can become prideless, you can give up your pride by serving a devotee. Become a servant of a devotee. That will help to make us humble. And then, obstacles on the path of mystic yoga, you can overcome them by keeping silent. And by stopping sense gratification, one can conquer envy, right? We were told, give up envy to help us to give up our anger. If we avoid anger, what we should, simply giving up envy, one should conquer anger. Giving up envy can conquer anger. And how to give up envy? Simply by stopping sense gratification. Of course, that's difficult for a lot of people, to get people to stop sense gratification. But still, can do it. So this is a very practical section of the Srimad Bhagavatam here. A lot of practical advice is being given. Then going ahead, text number 24. By good behavior and freedom from envy, one can counteract sufferings due to other living entities. And then by meditation and trance, you can counteract sufferings due to providence. And by practicing Hatha Yoga, pranayama and so on, you can counteract sufferings due to the body and mind. And by developing the mode of goodness, one can conquer sleep. And it says, especially in regard to eating, you should cultivate the mode of goodness that will help you to conquer sleep. So these are different things which we can bear in mind, and you can try to, sometimes you can apply them. You have some difficulty, you have some problem with people, problem with the body and mind. You have problem with the body and mind, do Hatha Yoga, do some pranayama. Can help you to overcome the bodily ailments and the mental instability. Of course, you can also chant Hare Krishna. And by meditation in trance, counteract sufferings due to providence. By meditating in trance. Well, of course we do that when we're chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada talks mainly about killing animals, suffering given to others. We cannot avoid suffering, but we can chant Hare Krishna. And in this way we can absorb ourselves and we can transcend the sufferings. Going ahead, text 25 talks about cultivating the mode of goodness. Become detached from the mode of goodness and come to the level of Shuddha Sattva. And we can do all this if we engage in the service of the spiritual master with faith and devotion. And this way you can conquer the influence of the modes of nature. So the next section, up to text 29, talk about the importance of accepting a spiritual master and surrendering to him and serving him. So in this verse, Prabhupada talks about taking shelter of the spiritual master, serving him with faith and devotion. Then you can overcome the influence of the material energy. And Prabhupada describes the advantage of the Bhakti yoga system. He said people doing yoga and jnana yogis and hatha yogi, dhyana yogis, they're practicing to control the senses. But if you do bhakti yoga, you can immediately get the mercy of Krishna. And you get the mercy of Krishna through the mercy of the spiritual teacher. So when we have faith and devotion to the Guru, then you get not only a Guru, faith and devotion to Guru and Krishna, then everything is revealed. And easily you can get the mercy of Krishna and become situated on the transcendental platform. So text 26, spiritual master should be considered to be directly the Supreme Lord because he gives transcendental knowledge for enlightenment. Consequently, for one who maintains the material conception that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being, everything is frustrated. His enlightenment and his Vedic studies and knowledge are like the bathing of an elephant. So the proper mood, the proper attitude in approaching the spiritual teacher is being explained here by Narada Muni. And in the purport, Prabhupada quotes important verses like the 7th verse from the Guru Vastikam, Sakshat Daritvena Samasta Shastri. The spiritual master is honored as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and is followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna. And the other verse, Acharyam mam vijaniyat. One should know the Acharya as my very self. Right? The spiritual master, he's God. He's the representative of God. He's not God, but he's the representative of God. And it's important, therefore, when we deal with the spiritual master, that we should show that kind of respect to him. And if you don't, then it's said, all of your enlightenment and all of your studies and knowledge are just like the bathing of an elephant. Everything is useless. Everything is frustrated. If you think the spiritual master is just an ordinary person. And of course Prabhupada had the experience. He said, one may argue the spiritual master's relatives and the men of the neighborhood consider him an ordinary human being. So should the disciple also think like that? No, of course not. The family members, the people in the neighborhood, they may know him as an ordinary human being, but they don't know him as a spiritual teacher. And they never took advantage of his association to be enlightened and to hear from him and take instructions from him. So we should never be confused about the position of the spiritual master. We have to follow very carefully. That faith in the spiritual master is crucial for our spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada quotes again the 8th verse of Guru Vastikam. By the mercy of the spiritual master, you get the mercy of Krishna. And without the mercy of the spiritual master, then there's only havoc on the path of self-realization. Therefore, I offer 3 times a day, I should offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So text 25, 26, 27, they're all describing up to 29. It's all about the importance of having a spiritual master. In text 27, Narada Muni gives the example about how people, they think of Krishna as an ordinary human being. Although Krishna is worshipped by saintly persons like Srila Vyasadeva, and Narada Muni, Asita, Devala, and so many great souls, they all worship Lord Krishna, but there's common people, foolish people, and they think Krishna is an ordinary person. Abhijananti mamudha manushim tanamashritam. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said, the foolish mock at me, descending amongst them like a human being. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. So there's a big difference. Lord Krishna knows, not everybody can understand. He is the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual master knows. The spiritual master, he is the servant of the Supreme Lord. So he is described, Prabhupada says in the purport here, he is Sevya Bhagavan. So he is the worshipper God. The spiritual master is the representative God, but he's the worshipper God. And Krishna himself, he is the worshipable God. So Krishna is the worshipable God, and the Guru is the worshipper God. And that's the difference between the Guru and the spiritual master. And then in Bhagavad Gita also you've got people commenting on Bhagavad Gita, giving their own interpretation, misrepresenting Bhagavad Gita. And they may think Krishna or Lord Rama is just an ordinary human being. So they may think like that, but it doesn't mean that Krishna becomes an ordinary human being just because they think like that. In the same way, the family members of the Guru, just like Prabhupada's family, they may thought, oh, he's just an ordinary man, but they don't understand. Spiritual master's an enlightened soul, and he's giving so much knowledge, he's giving so much spiritual benefit to his students. So he's not an ordinary human being. He's as good as the Supreme. He is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. And so it's very important, the mood which we have to our spiritual master. And even a little deviation, then it can be disastrous for a disciple's studies and austerities. Text 28, describing more about the relationship with the Guru. And Narada Muni said, you can do things like perform rituals and practice regulative principles and different austerities and practice yoga. It will help you to control the senses and mind. But even if you can control, even if you learn to control the senses and mind, if you don't come to the point of meditating upon the Supreme Lord, then it's all useless. You're just simply so much labor without any real result. The whole goal of all of these things is to come to the point to meditate upon the Supreme Lord. You have to realize the Lord in the heart. So staunch devotion to the spiritual master, very important. You do yoga, the whole purpose of yoga is to start meditating on the Supreme Lord. So first of all, we have to serve the spiritual master. And by the help of the spiritual master, we can go back to Godhead. And when we go back to Godhead, then you can get the association with the Supreme Lord. So the goal of yoga is to come in contact with the Supreme Lord. And if we don't achieve that, then our yoga is all useless, no benefit. So we want to get that personal association with the Supreme Lord. Again, 29, again making similar points. The example, Narada Muni says, professional activities or business profits cannot help one in spiritual advancement, but are a source of material entanglement. Right? Some professional activities. You've got some, maybe you're doing some job and you have some work you're doing in the company, and maybe you even have your own company and you're making profits and that. You make a lot of money, and you may make a lot of money in your profession also, but it doesn't help you advance spiritually. And often what happens, you become more attached to these things. You become more attached to your work. You forget the real goal of life is to become self-realized. And you can make some money, you become attached to the money, you think, let me make more money. Money's not enough, I should make more. And you become entangled. You never get free. And the same way, Vedic rituals, doing different Vedic rituals, they cannot help anyone who is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord. So it's important, if somebody is doing Vedic ceremonies, ritualistic ceremonies, they should be a devotee, and they perform the ceremony for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So we don't want to just be materially rich, we want to be spiritually rich. So to be spiritually rich, we have to take shelter of spiritual teachers and Krishna. Okay, material duties, you die in the mode of goodness, you can advance, you go up. You're in the mode of passion, you come back. In the mode of ignorance, you go down. They're still on the material platform. They're still in the modes of nature. So just sometimes people, they make a show of religion. Prabhupada writes about they make a show of religion with no Krishna consciousness. But common people, somehow they're impressed. But this does not help one at the end of life. It will not help one to get the goal of life, just to make a show and attract common people. People just become bewildered. Okay, the next section, text 30 up to text 40, we're going to hear about the process of liberation for the householder. How to get liberated for a householder. So, text number 30 says, you want to conquer the mind, you have to give up the company of the family and go and live in a solitary place, away from contaminated association. To maintain the body and soul, he should beg as much as he needs for the bare necessities of life. And we see, you know, when you're here in a holy place, like I'm in Mayapur, when you go to some temple, you know, you go to the yoga pita, like, you see there are beggars there. You know, usually they don't make a lot of money. They just get enough to maintain their life, basic necessities. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he criticized people who would come to visit holy places if they didn't give charity. He said it's a duty of householders to give charity. Of course, you don't need to give so much, but something should be given. You know, nowadays, you know, people have money, and so you give something, you give some, even you give coins or whatever, you give 10 rupees or 5 rupees. It's not very much today. It has very little purchasing power. But give something, even you give 1 or 2 rupees, it's okay, something. According to everyone's ability, you try to give, because it's part of the duty when we come to a holy place, that we should give some kind of charity. And there are some genuine souls who are doing like that, who are just simply begging to maintain their bodies, only to get the basic necessities of life. And of course, because they're begging, it makes them humble. This is how we conquer over the mind. So here, the one who is in family life, he's told, go out from the home and go and beg. And this way you become very humble. Go and leave the family, live alone. When you live with a family, then the family are all taking care of you. But when you live alone, you have to take care of yourself. And go out to beg, so you eat only as much as needed to keep your body and soul together. So this is how you conquer over lusty desires. And Prabhupada said, being a sannyasi means accepting a life of begging. Bhikshu, Tridandi Bhikshu. Sannyasis, when they sign their name, they will put Tridandi Bhikshu, and then Bhakti Swami, like that. So sannyasi, Bhikshu means beggar. So sannyasi is a beggar. So automatically sannyasis should be humble, and they should be free from lusty desires. Family life is the cause that spoils one's spiritual life or meditation. Understanding this fact, one should accept the order of sannyas without hesitation. So Prabhupada is speaking heavy there, encouraging people, you know, don't get stuck in the home, be ready to get out, detach from the home. Right? But Vanaprastha is there. Vanaprastha is supposed to be Panchasodvam Vanam Brajet. From the age of 50, You should begin to prepare to get out from the home. Vanaprastha, retired from the material duties and fully engaged in spiritual activities. I heard there was one couple just recently in Mayapur, they took the vow of Vanaprastha from Srila Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, his disciples. In the temple room, he awarded them the Vanaprastha, the take a vow of renunciation, detachment. Vanaprastha is meant to do also tapasya, some austerity, but completely devoted, no material duties, not working for money, just simply doing puja and studying scriptures and preaching. So Vanaprasthas like that, they are retired from the duties of family life. So then text 31 goes on talking about one can go and live in a holy place and practice yoga. The type of yoga which is being described, of course, this is physical. Place, said the land should not be too high or too low, it should be level. Sit very comfortably, being steady, keep the body straight, and chant the Vedic pranav, means chanting Om. So some people not ready to chant Hare Krishna, so they chant Om. And try to, by chanting Om, gradually they can become purified, and one day they can take up chanting the holy name. Actually, the chanting of Om and the Maha Mantra are not different. And Prabhupada said the difference between chanting Omkara and chanting Hare Krishna is the Hare Krishna mantra may be chanted without consideration of the place or the sitting arrangements recommended in Bhagavad Gita. And up here, earlier, Prabhupada writes, there is no difference between the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and Omkara, because both of them are sound representations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then there's information about the seat, how the seat should be. It should be in a secluded place, cover it with a deer skin. Hare Krishna mantra may be chanted by anyone without considering the place or how one sits. Chanting Hare Krishna mantra, there are no special rules. Anytime, any place, you can chant. And it will bring results very quickly if you chant Hare Krishna. But then Prabhupada said, when you're chanting Hare Krishna, you can also observe some regulative principles. So when you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're sitting and chanting, keep the body straight. Sit up straight, and this will help one in the chanting process. Otherwise, one may feel sleepy. So sometimes you hear Prabhupada like that, he'll say, sit properly, sit properly. When he's chanting, you tell some devotees, sit properly. You have to learn to sit straight. If the back bends, when the back bends, then you go to sleep. The back bend, the head goes down, then you start to drift away. You're not hearing the mantra anymore. Your meditation is lost. You start to sleep. So that's not good. So you can avoid that tendency to fall asleep or to feel sleepy. You keep the body straight. Sit straight. Keep the back straight. Of course, you can always stand up also. But if you're going to sit, at least sit straight. Keep the back straight, then you won't fall asleep. Okay, text 32, 33, more about meditation, practicing, controlling, how to control the mind, give up all material desires. Whenever the mind wanders, bring it back. So we practice like that when we're chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada quotes the final verse of the 6th chapter. It says, the devotee can immediately become a perfect yogi because he practices keeping Krishna constantly within the core of his heart. This is another way to practice yoga easily. This is another way to practice yoga easily. The Lord says, Manmanabhavam, engage your mind in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. And if you do devotional service, keeping Krishna in your heart, you'll become the first-class yogi. So yoga can be helpful, but if you take the devotional service, you can immediately become a perfect yogi without difficulty. Bhakti yoga is not difficult. You want to do the other yoga, there's so many difficulties. It takes so much time. But if you do this yoga, in a short time, the heart becomes fixed and free from disturbance, like a fire without flames or smoke. So, devotees should be without material desires. So it's not that the mind is not working. The mind is still there, but the mind has to be purified. Just like our senses. Our senses are still working, but the senses have to be used in the service of Krishna. If we don't use the senses, then we become like wood or stone. So we're all eternal, living entities, we're spirit souls, and we're all conscious. And we're meant to use our body in the service of Krishna. And to stop the mind from being agitated, we have to bring the mind to the lotus feet of Krishna. And when we fix our mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, then we can become peaceful very quickly. And Prabhupada quotes a peace formula. Knowing how Krishna is the proprietor of everything, and he's the supreme enjoyer, and he's the best friend. So the practice of yoga, who is it for? Prabhupada said here, for one who cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the practice of yoga is recommended. Right? If you cannot understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, then you can do that kind of yoga. Okay, text 35. When one's consciousness is uncontaminated by lusty desires, it becomes calm and peaceful, and one is situated in blissful life. Once situated on that platform, one does not return to materialistic activities. Right? One who's achieved that platform, he'll never want to go back to that to material life again. But if we're not engaged in devotional service, then there's a chance of fall down. But if we're actually situated in devotional service, not only a fool would give up devotional service and go back to the material world. Then the next verse, 36, talks about somebody may become a sannyasi, but he may not be able to maintain the vows. And he may come back to materialistic activities again. So this person is described to be a vantasi, one who eats his own vomit. He's a shameless person. So that's the Vedic standard. When you renounce the world, you don't go back to it. Material activities are on the bodily platform. But sannyasi is meant to be transcendental. It's meant to be situated on transcendental bliss. It's meant to be on the transcendental platform. There should be no longer lusty desires, no longer disturbed, no desire for associate with the opposite sex. Then he can be a sannyasi. But if he accepts sannyas at an immature stage, then he may be attracted again and fall back to the material, and again he may become in family life or a victim of some woman. So this is very bad. Of course, it disturbs the social situation. So in our Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada said, it is advised sannyasis and brahmacharis keep strictly aloof from the association of women, so that there will be no chance of their falling down again as victims of lusty desires. So we try to arrange like that with the ashrams. We have brahmachari ashrams for the single men, and sannyasis usually also stay somewhere nearby. And then the marriages, they have their own ashram. And married couples, they're separate. The householders, they will live outside the temple. Men and women are not allowed to live together in the temple. They have to be outside the temple if they want to be together. So for sannyasis and brahmacharis, it's very important that they can keep away from the women. Sometimes it does happen that people become sannyasis, and then after some time, sometimes we see somebody's been a sannyasi for a long time, but somehow they come back. The material, they want to take up again, go back into the material, have a wife and live as a householder. Sannyasis, Prabhupada described a walking dead man. A sannyasi is like a walking dead, that he has no connection with the material world. So, if they give up sannyas again, that means they're giving some importance to the body. It means they're forgetting their spiritual nature. So this is very bad. Sannyasi is supposed to be advanced in knowledge that he's Brahman, that he's the soul, not the body. But when people want to give up the sannyas, it means they want to go back into the material platform, onto the bodily platform again. So they start to think about the body and think about enjoying the body. So some people give importance to the body. Even sannyasis sometimes, they stress the importance of the body. Like in the line of Shankaracharya, you must be born in a Brahmana family to be a sannyasi. Sannyas is only given to people born in Brahmana families. Of course, Lord Chaitanya, he could do that. He could take sannyas because he was coming in a Brahmana family. But sannyas is actually, it's a spiritual position. And anybody when somebody is actually detached from the material body, then regardless of their birth, if they have understood the actual position of the soul and the difference between the body and the soul, then they can go on and become sannyasis. The fact is, the body of a Brahmana is not Brahman. Just like the body is not rich or poor. And the body of a poor man, if the body of a poor man is Daridra Narayan, then the body of a rich man would have to be Dani Narayan. So the whole thing is ridiculous. So sannyasis who know the meaning of the name of the Lord, they will regard the body as Brahman. Those who regard the body as Brahman or as Narayan, they're very mistaken, it's very wrong. But still they have like that. When we see a Mayavadi sannyasi, you're supposed to respect him and say, Namo Narayan. And these sannyasis also, although sannyasi is a spiritual order, they make programs for the body, just to serve the body. So this is not the proper way. Okay, 38, 39. Just to finish off, it is abominable for a person living in Grihastha ashram to give up regulative principles. Similarly, for a brahmachari not to follow brahmachari vows while living under the care of the guru, or a vanaprastha to live in the village and engage in so-called social activities, or for a sannyasi to be addicted to sense gratification. One who acts in this way is considered the lowest renegade. Such a pretender is bewildered by the external energy of the Lord, and one should either reject him from any position or, taking compassion upon him, teach him, if possible, to resume his original position. So, this is how we deal with such things. So, following Varnashram Dharma, it's important. And each ashram, different duties. The Grihasthas have their concessions. They can associate with their wives, husband and wife together, and they can also have children, provided they follow the rules and regulations of household life. And a brahmachari lives with the guru, then whatever he goes out and collects, he should give to his guru. He's living in the ashram of the guru, and he will go and beg, and whatever he collects, he should give to his guru. And if the vanaprastha engages in ordinary activities, then it's also, it's not vanaprastha. If he's just an ordinary working in a job and like that and doing these things, earning money, that's not vanaprastha life. And if the sannyasi is greedy, and if he eats meat, fish and eggs and all kinds of nonsense just to satisfy his tongue, then he's a cheater, and we should be rejected. But we can also show these people compassion, and we can try to teach them something better. So Narada Muni, just to finish this section, text number 40, the human form of body is meant for understanding the self, the Supreme Lord, both of whom are transcendentally situated. The Lord and the self, both of them can be understood when one is purified by advanced knowledge. For what reason and for whom does a foolish, greedy person maintain the body for sense gratification? So cultivating knowledge, we should understand the body is not the self. The difference between the body and the soul. A sannyasi who has understood the self should be engaged to elevate the self and associate with the Supreme Lord. And our movement is meant to bring people also to this platform. Prabhupada really criticizes sannyasis who don't follow regulated principles, who are eating everything. He's not free of the urge of the tongue, the belly and the genitals. So he's not aware that the body is different from the soul. So this person, he's like a lampata, he's a greedy person, simply interested in sense gratification. So very bad. Alright, so we'll go on from text 41 in the next class, next weekend. So we'll have to stop here today. Are there any questions? Anyone? No questions? Okay, so then we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Go back to Vrinda ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.